You're listening to the Insurance Podcast from Insuretech Connect 2024, recorded live in Las Vegas, Nevada. Brought to you by First Insurance Funding, the innovator in payment solutions.
Hey, we're back at the studio here, the Makeshift Insurance Podcast studio in the media room, and we're sitting down with Shane Riedman, who is the president of anti-fraud for Verisk. So Shane, thanks for sitting down with us and talking a little bit about what you're seeing at ITC and what's going on with Verisk.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah,
hey,
looking forward to it.
Right on. So let's get into a little bit of ITC. What are you seeing here? What do you hope to talk about with people as Verisk, and what sort of are you bringing to the market, and any special announcements?
What do we see at? So maybe the better question is, what do you not see at ITC?
Yeah, good point.
It's a little bit overwhelming, to be quite frank. I don't know how many exhibitors there are, but I'm guessing there are in the thousands. Our intention here is not really to connect with customers. It's to connect with the ecosystem and with potential partners. So we're really looking to establish relationships, to meet people, to understand like what startups are up to, what existing companies that are in the space are up to, and just to sort of like catch the vibe a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it is a unique vibe, and for people who are listening and haven't been here, one of the things Pete and I love about the trade show is, in addition to the big booths, sort of the guys that have made it happen, and there's private equity and VC and things hanging from the ceiling and Bengal tigers running around or whatever else is going on in that booth. Some of our favorite conversations are when we walk into sort of that side area. We call it the K booths. I don't know what they're calling them this year, but it's sort of like a payphone, and in the payphone there's actually three individual organizations that are on the edge of becoming something.
Yeah.
And do you get a chance to walk around in there and see those guys?
Absolutely, yeah, and I agree with you. Those are where some of the best conversations happen, and actually there's the some of the best energy too, quite frankly.
Yeah, because they're the founder or they're the person who wrote the code, right? Like they're literally standing there going, this is what I built, what do you think?
Yeah.
And they're just exposing themselves.
Yeah, and in fact I was just came from there, met two guys, co-founders of a new company, and it was just really interesting to see the ideas that they had, the way they brought their energy to the event, the way that they're really passionate about the subject, and they also have like this sense of ownership that you can only get if you're a founder, right? Like they saw the problem, they recognized it, and they came up with their own idea of this. That's kind of that makes it magical when you meet with folks like that.
Absolutely, it's really inspiring. So let's get into a little bit of what you guys are saying in terms of where Verisk is with the industry. And you said you want to connect with industry people, sort of build some relationships. When it comes to fraud, what are you seeing with fraud and how Verisk addresses it? Because we've got some personal stories about fraud and stuff, certainly, in our neck of the woods. But from an oversight view, what are some of the challenges with fraud right now?
And you're not referring to the guys at the craps table yesterday?
No.
That's not fraud.
That's the guys that
they were doing something to take our money.
Yeah,
exactly.
The
house was winning way more than we were. So there was a
welcome to Vegas.
Yeah.
So Verisk is in a unique position. We've been working on the fraud problem for maybe longer than anybody, for more than 50 years.
Wow.
And we have, through that experience, we have connections with just about every insurance company in the United States, just about every TPA, most self-insured, so any major self-insured, law enforcement agencies, the National Insurance Crime Bureau, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and more. So we have connectivity to all of these different players in the industry, and we're leveraging that network to create an ecosystem. So that's the new big thing we're doing at Verisk. We're opening up our network to new entrants into the ecosystem and giving them access to our customer base and solving the customer's problems in a really unique and interesting way through partnerships.
That's fascinating. So this is then now another tool that companies can use when they're dealing with their underwriting, right? It's part of the profile for underwriting.
We're focused more on the claim side. We definitely help on the underwriting and point of sale. But most of the fraud that we see is perpetrated on the claim side. There's definitely misrepresentations at point of sale, garaging, like I tell you that my car is garaged in Idaho when I really live in Manhattan.
And what about things like when you deal with loss claim side and you have to verify something was actually there, is that something that you're using technology for?
Absolutely. So one of the ways that we're doing that is through digital media forensics.
Okay.
So real life example, we ingest as part of our claim search product. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of claim search. It's the database of all claims in the United States.
Wow.
That's a Verisk product. So we have about 1.8 billion claims in the database right now.
Wow.
So just about every claim in America is in this database. And not only do we have information about the claim, but we have the media that was submitted to substantiate the claim, like a receipt or a photo of the damages. And what we're doing is we've developed analytics that look at those photos and look at those documents to detect evidence of tampering, manipulation, or even a photo that was just created fully from AI generated
deep fake stuff.
Deep fake stuff. Yeah. So I think that's sort of like our where we're leading the fight against fraud is we're really focused on the digital media and identifying altered images and altered documents.
Yeah, and last year, I mean, you guys have been here every year we've been here. So last year, particularly, the ITC made AI sort of the topic of the conference, right? And we are all supposed to talk AI and deliver the message of how AI is going to improve the insurance ecosystem, as you said. So where then do you see, you made the reference to AI helping with the images, but where else can you sort of share how last year you guys talked about AI and maybe where that's evolved in the last 12 months and is it slightly different than what we were hearing last year?
Well, AI is an interesting term.
Yeah, pretty broad.
It's pretty buzzy.
Yeah, buzzy is a good one. Yeah.
And it does kind of like bring back memories of blockchain and how that was going to solve all of our problems.
Well, when we first started coming here, Insuretech meant that you were going to sell insurance completely different. You were going to use an agent and broker. Remember when we all started coming to this conference and we walked in and Pete and I went, oh my goodness, like who's going to sell insurance next year? Because we had no idea what we were doing. But yet that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we're here today seeing more agents and brokers at this event than ever before. So to your point, but AI is there, right? It's still there. Yeah.
It's there. So the way I think about it, and this is more of a personal opinion, but I think it's reflective of our organization. AI will never replace the human.
Right.
At least not from what we see the technology. Even the latest releases today that are solving complicated math problems that require a little bit of reasoning, it's still not the same level of reasoning that you're going to get from a person, somebody who has a real life experience, and they have, they grew up, right? They were exposed to things, and they use that as part of their baseline in making reasoning or in their reasoning skills. So because we don't think AI will ever truly replace the human, where we're really focusing our efforts with AI is accelerating those maybe more complicated and time-consuming human tasks. So a really easy example is we have a product where we can read medical records. So the machine reads the medical records and spits out a very concise, accurate summary of the treatment. It spits out the issues that existed during the treatment, anything that maybe was outside of the ordinary, and then summarizes things like what were the CPT codes used in the treatment and when were those CPT codes used? Is there a timeline for the treatment? So it's things like a human could definitely do that. Yeah. It just might take 6 hours, where our machine can do that in 6 minutes.
So the open text idea, like it exists in legal, finding anomalies, right?
Anomaly detection, but even just summarization.
Right.
Just getting to the heart of what is this stack of papers.
Dealing with the repetitive tasks, and we know in the insurance ecosystem, this was the industry that created repetitive tasks, right? Like and frankly, we're still doing them the same task that we were doing 20 years ago. And it really does, and as we like to say on the podcast, insurance doesn't just move slowly, it moves slower than glaciers. And it's hard to change. So when you're sort of thinking about AI and what you guys are bringing to the market and particularly in your expertise with fraud, are you seeing a desire to change and evolve a bit from insurers and people in the ecosystem, or is it still kind of slow?
So there's this super interesting dynamic that's occurring right now. Obviously, the media has picked up a lot on AI, right? You can't read the New York Times without reading a story about generative images or something. And so we know that customers and people that run insurance companies, they're seeing the same, they're getting the
Right.
same exposure. They know that there's an opportunity to accelerate the human process, right? But there's also this risk. They don't really understand how it works. They're afraid of things like the, a large language model just sort of making things up, right? Hallucinations, they call it. So there's some risk to just sort of like going all in and incorporating these new technologies. So what companies are doing is they're creating like an AI board or an AI review committee. And what we're seeing is that we have a business leader who understands the technology and understands how it can impact their operation, and they want to do something, but then they're fighting against the internal forces that are saying, wait a second, we need to protect our stakeholders, we need to protect our data, we don't really know what what this technology is actually doing. And so there's this internal like friction that's occurring within large insurance companies today that's making their movement very slow. I heard from a company, and I won't say their name, but I heard from a company recently that review process can take 12 months. Now, 12 months, the technology is completely different. And if you're really spending 12 months analyzing risk on acquiring software, you're going even slower than a glacier.
Yeah, like how do you make a timely decision if you need 12 months?
Right.
And the world's changing faster than that, and it's
Way faster.
every day we wake up and there's a new change. What else have you, like with Verisk being here this year, what are you sort of talking about in general as a company too? You're in a lot of different streams in terms of where you fit within in the insurance ecosystem. What are some of the other things you want to bring sort of a message to future partners and people here?
Yeah, well, so Verisk is unique. Verisk is we solve a lot of problems for insurers and throughout the life of the policy. Everything actually from acquisition, so advertising and identifying potential customers and new policyholders, all the way through the entire policy period, through the claim from first notice of loss, all the way to the end and handling the regulatory reporting that happens at the end of a resolution of a claim. Where we have products or services or data assets that help solve problems at just about every one of those steps. So what traditionally we've thought about ourselves as sort of being that one-stop shop and a solution center where, okay, if you need something to help with your acquisition, or you need something to help with rating at policy inception, we can help you with that. If you need something that identifies fraud during the life of a claim, we can help you with that too. We've come to the realization through humility and sort of really reflecting that we can't solve every problem, right? But what we can do is we can help our customers by bringing in those other solutions and other, like a startup, for example. So I think the message that I'm really trying to push out with when I'm talking to others at the conference here at ITC Vegas is that you may have seen us as a competitor in the past. Today, see us as a partner. And see us as being a potential way to align, to access the market, to serve those customers, because we can't, no one company or one person can solve every problem. But together, collectively, we really can do the like 1 + 1 = 3 equation and help our customers in ways that maybe they never knew that were possible before.
Well, and speaking of that, your partners, Opta up in Canada, Pete and I are both Canadians, so you have Greg McCutcheon who's down here right now, I know, attending ITC, and Opta up in Canada has been a huge source of information. They were, I think, one of the first ones to bring the home evaluation system into the market in a digital way, right? And improved the ability for brokers and agents to properly assess the value of a home, and now into rating and such. How do you see, for us as Canadians, and maybe you don't go into the Canadian market as much, but data is a challenge, right? You talked earlier, 1.8 billion claims, and the data that you guys can compile here in the U.S. is much greater, obviously 10 times more because your population. But what do you see as some of the challenges you face outside of the U.S. when it comes to the services you're offering? Canada has some fairly strong privacy laws that I think in some ways, Pete and I feel at least, that it's almost hurting the customer now. The government wrote these rules to protect people's data, but now they're not getting proper underwriting information on things. And if the data was there, it could actually be maybe bringing their insurance rates down, because now we actually know what their business is versus being in the dark, let's say. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, so we deal with this all the time. it's very tricky to move data, especially data that has personally identifiable information, PII, or even healthcare information,
Yeah,
PHI.
right.
It's very tricky to move that data across borders, right?
Yeah.
But one of the models that you can actually look at is the United States model. The United States is not just one jurisdiction,
Yes,
right? It
yeah.
is not one state.
Correct.
There's maybe, depending on who you ask, there may be 54 different jurisdictions because every state has its own constitution and its own set of laws.
Mm-hmm.
You have the federal overlay, so you have a federal government with its set of laws and its constitution, and then you have territories. You have like the District of Columbia, that's not a state, or so it's sort of like its own thing. If you think about that challenge of working in an environment with 54 different sets of rules that govern insurance, every state has its own insurance rules. And if you get really good at that, you can take those learnings and help, for example, work across the border with Canada, to work with our partners in Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and elsewhere. You start to use the United States as a model for how you can do it, because we're doing it today. We're moving information.
It's not easy.
But it's not easy.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work. But I think that there are some use cases where we've proven it.
Shane, this has been super interesting. Thanks so much for jumping on the show with us and recording and stopping by our makeshift booth here. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll look forward to catching up and seeing you on the floor and having a cold beverage at some point when our feet are sore.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. And it was good chatting with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.